It's now time for part 32 of the emergency shed storage clean out series. We're making good progress. The last few episodes we threw some Briggs & Stratton engine parts on eBay, and one of them actually has a bid, the sump, for $40. Wasn't expecting any bids in the first sort of auction format part of it, but that's exciting. We also unboxed or tested that CRT TV, and that's now in the shop for $80. What else was there in that one? I forget, but we've dealt with that. It's all in the shop for sale. Part 32, let's go and have a look what we can get. Now, I have been doing a little bit of work out there. I've actually managed to move a shelf in. Yes, you're probably surprised at that. Let's go and have a look. Yes, I've moved a shelf in so that I can get more organised. Here we go. I needed somewhere to put my buckets of scrap because they were getting under my feet in the main shed. I didn't want them out in the weather just yet. Well, I don't really want them in the weather. And I'm going to do a load to Melbourne to the scrapyard when I get enough, which will probably come along pretty quickly because we've got quite a lot of brass building up. There are some crates outside with brass in them as well. And so that timber shelf there came from the huge workshop cleanup series we did a little while back, and I do have a follow-up episode to that series shortly. You may be wondering what's going on there. The pedestal drill and that old pie warmer, which is now a spanner storage unit, they're staying in this shed, and there's some more scrap stacked up the top. So even though I'm creating room in this shed and I'm saying all the time I'm not going to bring more junk in, I'm not. This is stuff that's organised. It needs to go somewhere, and I've got a little bit of space against the wall where it can go. It's not permanent, but it will do for getting things sorted out in the short term. Likewise, as I'm cleaning up this shelf, I'm using it for storage so I can get organised. Now, I did have a tub of mower parts up there, but I've moved them somewhere else. So that blue tub, as you can see, has Air Force and pilot stuff, which came from that huge workshop clean out we did recently. Remembering that the guy was a pilot. I'm also keeping some lathe steel. We will be eBaying that stuff at some stage when I have time to research it, so we'll see that on a future video. I'm keeping any heavy round steel that might be handy in the lathe. I don't think I can... Yeah, it's going to fall on my head. We'll leave that up there. So rather than throw all the steel in the scrap, any good solid lathe steel I'm keeping. It's not actually parts of the lathe. I think I've got them somewhere else. I think that's just good heavy round stuff that I can actually use as I go through it. Perhaps some might end up in the scrap bin, but I just thought I'd sort of file it away there for now. Okay, we need to get, we've got an empty spot from last time. We need to get the next two shelves done. Let's start on this side over here. I think that's a cast iron kettle, and we have a bottle of some workshop consumable. I'm guessing maybe mineral terps or kerosene. I was close. So I'll keep that. I do use it in the workshop sometimes, and also I use it to light the fire, although it's not so cold anymore, but we will keep that. We'll get that kettle out in a minute, and then we'll get these tins out of this side. They're probably going to be random workshop hardware, so we'll tip them on the bench, but we'll have a look in those in a second. But I was going to show you something else before we get into there. I moved the bench grinder and the stand over here. I will be setting that up in the workshop somewhere as well. In that corner, you didn't really miss anything. There was just a few fluorescent tubes I'm going to use as lights in here, and a couple of other bits of metal that I'm keeping. But there's also this box. Now, this came from a shed I cleaned out quite a few years ago now, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it. It's actually a Department of Defense World War II radio. I assume it looks like it's World War II era. I don't know if it's dated. It looks like it's incomplete, but it's a pretty cool piece of kit. And part of me wants to research it so much that I can actually restore it and use it. But then that part of me is probably, in dream state. I don't know. I might end up selling it as is. We'll look at that in more detail down the track. But it's a pretty cool piece. I'll leave it in here for now, just where it is, and we'll deal with it another time. That'll be a separate video working out what to do with that. I need to do some research. So, all right, let's get this out. I think it was a Kettle. Certainly is. A good heavy cast iron kettle. No lid on it, unfortunately. Whoa, it's heavy, all right. It's branded. Number 4, Kenrick, 8 pints. Unfortunately, it looks like it has a crack. I don't remember where it came from. It's in pretty good condition, though. Possibly a crack to the cast iron. Very old one. It's a little rusty on the handle, but it's not bad otherwise. In fact, the base looks excellent. Yeah. So it may not leak, but I'm not sure if it's going to be actually usable. I might find a saucepan lid for it that fits. I've got some lids at the shop. I don't think I've got a kettle lid. But we're going to get $30, $40 maybe for that. If I find a suitable lid, maybe $50, just purely as an ornament. It may be usable. I mean, the crack doesn't appear to go down the side, and it doesn't look too bad inside. So, all right, we'll probably go $50 on that, I reckon. We'll take that through to the other room shortly. Let's have a look in these tins. Okay, this first one, the tin itself is saleable. An old sellotape tin, probably 1950s, I would imagine. Not sure if it's an Australian tin or not. Looks like it came from a clearing sale at some stage with a lot number on it. And what's in it? Well, I think it's just got random shed hardware in it, so we'll tip that out on the bench and go through it and work out what to do with it. Oh, there's an elephant back here. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, isn't that right? A speaker. Other workshop hardware. These are going to be all random ones. I think they probably came from my old workshop. Yeah, we have some cupboard latches and things, and another elephant. These were ice cream tins, of course, but we don't have the lids for them, and they're not in the best condition. They do sell if they're in good nick. Yeah, lots more cupboard hardware. We'll tip all these out and go through them. I don't think we're going to find anything amazing, but we'll you might be surprised what value we get out of those. Okay, let's go through these tins. I don't know how interesting this is going to be. We just have some tacks in there. This looks like drawer handles and cupboard handles. So we'll tip them all out. Okay, there's some new ones in here in packets. There's some older ones that are a bit oil stained. They're all timber. That's better, you can see. We have retro sort of 1950s era ones, or Art Deco you'd probably call those ones. They'll be brass. They'll actually be nickel plated brass. Then we have much more modern ones. So these must have been in a drawer in my old workshop. That's the finial from the end of a curtain rod. And that's a slightly different Art Deco one there. Another one of those. They're reasonably common, those ones. What are we going to do? I think they're better than scrap money. I think I could group them up. You know, Art Deco drawer pulls, maybe $10 a lot. So we might group them up. We have some more retro ones here. These are more 60s and into the 70s. They're not brass. These will be a die-cast zinc. And there's a few of those. Oh, slightly different. It's a round one. There's another Deco one. Okay, we might group them together. Sort of 60s and 70s retro era. And the earlier Art Deco ones. These ones are more of a reproduction type thing, I think. They're quite heavy. Yeah, we might even make those a group of metal, heavier metal ones or brass ones. They're from an Art Deco drawer set, but I don't think they're much good. So really just drawer handles in that one. That's pretty boring. This other one has cupboard hardware as well. That's a brass, I think that's a fire poker handle. It's certainly brass. We'll probably keep that. I do get some of these fire pokers every now and again. If nothing else, we'd easily get $1 for it, so that's better than scrap price. I just checked that. It is about $1 for scrap price, so we might put $2 or $3 on it in the shop. I think it'll sell. Okay, let's tip this one out. Oh, what a mixture. What have I got myself into here? Now, even though the tin's very rough, it's a jumbo ice cream tin. Interestingly, this is the girl elephant and the other one's the boy elephant. Well, who am I to judge? This elephant is wearing a skirt. This elephant isn't. That's probably more accurate. You can make up your own minds on that. Don't have lids. They're pretty rough, but I think I'd still get $5 at least for this one, and probably the same for this one. So they look, if someone's setting up a kitchen display, it says bronze bushes, but the elephants are pretty easy to see. I think we'll go $5 each on these tins. They'll look good. Someone will like them. All right, we have rubber stoppers. They're gone a bit hard. That one's not so bad. I do have a tin full of these old rubber stoppers because they are often missing on chairs that we get in the shop, so I do use those. Some very old cupboard latches. I think we had one of these in the last sort out we did. I think a lot of these rusty ones might just go straight in the scrap. They're not of enough value to sell. Even the hinges, they used to be nickel plated, but no more. I do get a lot of those. The nicer hinges I might just put in a jar and sell as a bulk lot of hinges. At least they're a little bit interesting, some of them. I think these suit the old 1950s around about kitchen dressers. That one's seized up. Oh, and these things go through handles. I saw one before. Where was it? This one. So that's the push button that operates the switch. It should push through that hole, or is it? Unless it's a different sort. But that's what they have the button, then you push it and it releases, I think, this latch. The button actually pushes the latch. Yeah, it still works. Look at that. But they're so rusty, I don't know that people are going to... I'm not going to spend time cleaning them up either. Unless I put the whole lot in a box. Perhaps that's better value. Oh, that's the one that suits. Or that's a different... Yeah, there you go. Push button goes through there. And that part mounts on the inside of the cupboard. Something like that. So we might just group all these up just because they're so rough and put them all in a box of assorted vintage cupboard hardware, and someone else can sort them out. We'll just say go $5 a lot better than scrap price, because it's only a matter of cents for all this, except for the brass bits. The brass is going to be a bit better. That's a nice old early shell type handle too. That's probably brass. All right, I'll group these together. There's a couple of coat hooks. But yeah, it's all pretty rough stuff. There's not much value here at all. Okay, that's sorted that box of hardware a bit. I'll go through it at the end and show you what I'm going to do. I am grouping a lot of stuff up. Let's tip this one out. There's only these other two to go. This one's more normal hardware, like fasteners. And, oh, rusty nails. And, okay, well, there's not very much value in here. There's been water in that. But we'll wash that out, because I still think that tin's a nice one. I think we'll get $10 for that tin. It'll actually clean up pretty well. Okay, all the nails are just going in the scrap bin. They used to be galvanised. Some of them still are, but I'm not going to save these nails. Is there any value in here at all? What do we got? A huge long wood screw, but I've got plenty of those new old stock ones that can just go in the scrap bin. This looks like a wire key for fencing, for twitching wire. It's got a few different holes, maybe for the main fencing wire and for a tie wire. All you do is put the end of the wire through the hole and twitch it round, and it just neatens off the end of it. That's not good enough to sell. That's just going in the scrap as well. A large bush, is that? It's probably a steel. No, it might be brass. It's non-magnetic. Let's try a file on it. Yeah, it's definitely brass. So there's a good chunk of brass for a brass bin. Another brass bush, maybe? No, that's steel. All right, there's a couple of, a few bits of hardware that are okay. I tend to keep these wood bolts, as long as they're not rusty. we'll fill a jar with those. But really, anything heavier, that's an older one, so anything heavy is going in a heavy melt steel bucket with those ones. And all the light stuff's just going in pressing steel, but I will keep these better bolts. We can sell those. And I might wave a magnet over it just to make sure that there's no, like, to pick up everything, and whatever's left we might have some more brass. But yeah, there's not much value in here at all. So I do like picking up stuff with a magnet because it automatically screens out any more precious metals, and you get to have a good look when you're putting it in the tin. Because I do like to keep any hardware that's still quite usable. For example, there's a nice heavy coach bolt in very good condition. And I might keep a few of these Tech screws because they're ones that I use all the time. And also some eye bolts. Anyway, we'll keep picking it all up with a magnet and we'll see what's left. And this is what's left. And how about that? We're in the money. 1 cent. A copper cent. I do keep these. They are still actually legal tender, but most shops won't accept them, although I think legally they probably have to. 1 cent. It's copper, but I'll put it in a tin. And I have had someone buy a heap of copper coins off me once. There might be certain years that are collectible and they like to go through them. That's a piece of brass. We obviously have plastic that doesn't get picked up by the magnet, and some old grommets. And that wood screw will be a stainless steel one or a nickel plated brass one, and same with a couple of self tappers. And the rest of it's just dirt and rust and rubble. There's another rusty screw. That's probably a stainless steel one, but it's just been sitting with other things that are rusting. So there you go. We've got one little tub to go. We'll see what's in that one. So the second ice cream tin now. We have a bit of an assortment here. There's a sharpening stone. That's in good condition. It's a nice fine one, so that will be useful in the shed. These look like they're stuck to the magnet speaker. Yeah, I think they're probably from angle grinders or something, just the clamping nuts. I'm not sure if I need to keep those. They can probably go in the shred. That's a little fuse holder in a little plastic case. That's pretty cool. That actually could be usable. The speaker probably isn't. Yeah, it's got holes through the paper, so that one's no good. We'll just put that in the shred steel. I'm not going to try and get the magnet off it. Don't think it's a particularly good magnet. Oh, okay, some interesting bits in here actually. Let's tip this one out. Oh, what a weird assortment. The tin's actually not real flash. It has got a hole through the bottom. But I'll wash these and we'll still try and get our $5 because they are vintage ice cream tins and it's great advertising. That's a glass doorknob or drawer knob. It would have had a nickel-plated screw through it. So that's quite an old one. We'll possibly use that at some stage. We have some feet of something threaded. Are they a standard thread? They are. All right. They might be useful. Is there more than 2? I hope there's 4 because 2 aren't that good. That's another thing from an angle grinder. We have another coat hook. I had a few of those before, so we'll put that with them. A brass tap head or handle. That will be nickel plated brass. It's a slightly different shape than normal, but they can just go with our brass. Ooh, I reckon that's part of an early brass candelabra from a piano. They were usually quite ornate brass, and most early pianos had 2 of them on the board in front of where you play, and they swung around, and you could have a candle in it, so you'd play by candlelight, because most of the early pianos, well, all the real old ones, of course, when they were made, no one had electricity. You had to use lamps and candles. I think that's what that's from. It's probably just going to go in my brass bin because it's obviously just a part of it, and I don't think there's anything else here that belongs to it. All right, we have some wooden feet, but again, only two. Bit of plastic. Bakelite saucepan knob. This is an assortment. That's where the plastic was from. These are a magnetic latch made by Turner, Australia. So cupboard hardware again. That is if I remember correctly, that's the tensioning arm for a ring compressor from my mechanics days, but the compressor's not here. It's only a square section piece of steel that can just go in our scrap. An interesting hammerhead. That's very, very light. That's a cast aluminium hammerhead. Very interesting. Very poorly cast. I don't think it's a good quality piece. Maybe it was a kid's toy. Yeah, well, at least in the dollar box. More than what it's worth for scrap cast aluminium. Here's a more serious hammerhead. This looks like, oh, it's very chipped away in the claw part. I can't see a brand on it. Oh, there is a brand on it. No, it says Taiwan. Yeah, so it's not a very good quality one. They can just go in a $1 box. A little crank handle. That reminds me of the ones off the little pencil sharpeners that used to clamp onto the edge of your desk, and you could grind away and you'd make a whole pencil disappear in a couple of seconds if you were an aggressive sharpener. It may not, of course. It's off some little crank mechanism. I might hang on to that one for now. It's quite an old one. Oh, there's a light globe over here. I didn't see this one roll over. Phillips, and I can see the filament hanging off one of the supports. So yeah, that one's no good. This is an anvil. It's quite rusty, but this was for breaking chainsaw chain. It's made by Oregon. I can still read Oregon on there. And whatever pitch your chainsaw chain was, you'd lay it in there and you'd use a rivet breaker to punch the rivet out. And that's how you break the chain, to take a link out to shorten it or something like that. I think I still have my rivet puncher here somewhere. So I'll hang on to that. Just another, probably a nut off an angle grinder again. Oh, another Bakelite. I've got a couple of Bakelite saucepan knobs. A timber knob that can go with the ones we had earlier. A cast iron knob. Wonder what that one's off. It's got something written around there. We might buff that up and see what that one says. Another light here. I wonder if these were... I don't think they were projector lamps. I think that one's blown as well. It probably didn't help me tipping the bucket out on the bench. Some very old chain. This is brass chain, and this is used to hang old pictures. I think we'll hang on to that because I do sometimes fix up some old frames, so we will use that. Little cast iron flywheel, possibly from a Meccano set or something, or it might have even been a wheel off an early kid's toy. I have a whole box of old toy parts somewhere, so we'll put that aside. A cast iron pulley, probably from some canvas blinds or something. I do sometimes... Oh, there's another one. There's a double pulley. So we might group some pulleys together. I think there's some others in a box somewhere, and we'll just do a bulk lot in the shop for those as well. That looks like possibly the rubber insertion part for a compression tester on an engine, where you put that in the spark plug hole. I think something like that anyway. I don't think it's much use as it is. A very old brass screw, quite a coarse screw. Some of the early mirrors had one of these on each side so that you could actually pivot the mirror like a large cheval mirror. I think that's brass. Maybe it isn't. No, it's not. It's just steel. I don't think that's worth keeping. We might put it in a $1 box at the shop. Someone might think they've found a treasure. Couple of old wheels. That's just a standard light gauge one, nothing flash there. This one's a heavier cast one, but I don't think they're worth keeping. They're a bit bent up. They can just go in the scrap. Okay, oops, come back here. A D, I think that's part of the Holden name on the back of a car where they had individual letters. I've got some more of those somewhere, so we'll hang on to that one. Don't think it's got much value on its own. Another double roller catch. We had one of those recently. That's the cap from a kerosene blowtorch. It's actually got companion written on it. Just the fuel cap. I'll keep that because I get those blowtorches quite often and sometimes they are missing their cap. That's one of those push button latches. We'll put that in the tub we had before. I think we'll put all these ones in that tub as well. In fact, we'll also add the magnetic latch. Another pulley. Where do we put the pulleys? That's just a large screw-on. Don't know what that's off. It's probably nickel-plated brass. Certainly not magnetic. Let's get the file onto it. Yes, that's brass, so you can put that in our brass bin. A retro cupboard doorknob here in with our other hardware. They go with those clips. And these ones can go in there as well. They're just swing over latches for like early cupboard doors. Oh, we have the L from Holden too. Where did I put that? Over there. Little speaker. And, oh, that little cast iron plate. That probably goes with that, I would say. Yes, it fits nicely. We'll buff those up and see how they look. I think it's pretty cool, that one. And that pretty well finishes our tin. Time to wrap up this video and have a look at the notepad. It sure took a bit of sorting out, this one, but we got some pretty good value. I have grouped things. I've sort of moulded around a few different options. I've grouped them into the Art Deco stuff, the retro stuff, the vintage kitchen hardware, and the timber knobs. And I'm going to price those at $5 per lot, but I'll also put on the tag $1 each or $5 per lot. Clearly $5 per lot is much better value for someone that does a lot of furniture bits, but someone might come in and just want this one to match one they've got at home, and they're not going to buy everything else. So I can potentially do a lot more than 20 bucks, but I think they will sell, well, I think I've written down $5 per lot, so there's $20 return. All this stuff here is just to go in various containers for hardware in my workshop here, or to be sold. When I get enough pulleys, I'll make a group of those to sell. I do sell these latches. I've got a jar somewhere and I sell them per jar lot. Some of it might be handy, some might stay in my shed, but I do have, tins for general hardware, for wing nuts, for eye bolts, all sorts of stuff, also the electrical connections. So haven't written down any value for those ones. We have our kettle. I washed the tins up. They came up pretty well. So I think I've gone 15 on the sellotape tin and 5 each on the ice cream tins. The middle row here is just going in a $1 a pick box at the shop. So I don't know how we'll go there, but I'm not writing down any value again for that stuff. We have a little bit of heavy melt steel, so negligible amounts, only about 20 cents worth. The brass is about $5 worth. It's not far off a kilo, so $5 worth of brass. I actually forgot to write that on the list. Now, I did clean up some of these things. This is a swivel coat hanger or a coat hook, and this is what you would have found in the early wardrobes. They didn't have a rail with coat hangers like we do nowadays. It would have screwed to the roof of the wardrobe and you would hang things off it. And also a lot of the other hooks, like these ones, for example, just hung on right at the back of the wardrobe. And because the old wardrobes weren't as wide as today's, and you couldn't actually hang a men's suit sideways. I buffed up, have a look at that, looks new, which I don't necessarily like, but that was the fire poker. We'll easily get $5 for that now. It was very easy to buff up on the wire wheel. So $5 for that. I went for $5 on the pair of these old draw pulls. They are brass. I didn't buff those up because I do like the old look. I went for $10 on these 3 coat hooks. They're identical, even though they're different colours. And I think we'll get 10 for those. They're quite ornate ones. I put $10 down on the 2 Holden letters. The D is in pretty good condition. It's got both posts on the back. The L has, I think, 1.5 posts, or maybe 2.5. Yeah. Anyway, they seem to sell quite well. I've gone for $10 on those. Someone just might need to replace some missing letters on their vintage Holden. The pad bolts and the hinges, I've put $5 per lot. I'll put them into containers, and we should be able to sell those. And at the front here is some stuff I'm keeping. I decided to keep this little ratchet crank thing for the piston ring compressor because I'm likely to find it and then want this. And the other bits and pieces I'll keep here. I do keep some more special and nicer pieces of hardware when I'm restoring furniture and stuff. Not that I do a lot of it, but it's nice to have a little bit of stock of interesting stuff. These knobs just screw on. They'll be useful. And this one I did buff up, the cast iron one. There's no writing around it. It's just decorations. But that would be early 1900s, maybe even late 1800s. And that would look absolutely fantastic on a little cupboard. So I'll hang on to that because I may use it down the track. One of these bulbs was okay. They're a 15 watt, 240 volt. I think they're a fridge light globe. So I've got a box of globes. I might use that someday down the track. So there we go. We've been through it all. I can now assign it to its various positions and take the stuff to the shop that I'm going to price. And our list, as just discussed, added up to $150. Plus I forgot the brass, so add $5 worth of brass, $155. The single best thing, of course, was the cast iron kettle, but isn't it amazing how value adds up out of tins of just assorted junk? And guaranteed, 99 out of 100 people, if they were cleaning up an estate, would just drop these tins either just in the skip bin or in the scrap metal bin and get virtually no value for it. I've got some stuff I can use. I've got some stuff I can sell. Going to get a pretty good return out of it. And our 155 total takes us to about $6,250, something like that. So the value is still going up. I'm making room. It's all good. I hope you enjoyed this longer video. Not much really exciting, but interesting bits and pieces. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you in the next video. Bye for now.